U.S. President Donald Trump's second meeting in Vietnam with DPRK leader Kim Jong-un falling apart with no deal, his former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen stabs him in the back at home. During hours of public testimony before the House Oversight Committee on Wednesday, Cohen called his former boss a racist, a conman, and a cheat. Meanwhile, accusing Trump of committing criminal infractions during the 2016 presidential campaign. The former lawyer, who has been disbarred, has been convicted of lying to Congress and financial crimes and starts a 3-year jail term in May. But he said he would seek redemption by telling the full truth. Yet some are saying, due to the lack of documented evidence for most of his accusations against Trump, the testimony failed to give the Democrats a silver bullet. Although Cohen did provide more details of Trump's alleged violation of campaign finance law in the hush payments to the two women who said they had affairs with Trump. So how damaging is Cohen's testimony for Trump? Is it going where the Democrats had hoped? Joining me in the Beijing studio is Zhao, research fellow with the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and from Philadelphia, Blackburn-Dwyer, president of Grasshopper Group Incorporated. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. So different assessment of what was going on, or what actually happened in that hearing. Some people call it a cheap theater, that it was not a real hearing and only limited new evidence was provided. Other people call it explosive revelation about this president. Your assessment, Zhao, do you think the testimony has managed to shake President Trump's position as president?
I think the domestic politics in the United States are so polarized these days. The people who support Trump would not believe the story and will continue to accuse Michael Cohen of basically betraying President Trump and not telling the truth and accusing him of lying. But the people who are opposing President Trump will definitely believe his story and basically adding more and more details to the story that President Trump has been lying to Congress and directing other people to lie and violating the law. Therefore, they would like to start the impeachment process. So I think at this point, neither side could convince the other and to have unified action against the president.
Yeah, at this moment, Brandon, do you think, given also the kind of timing, right, spectacular timing of this hearing while President Trump is having this much anticipated meeting with Chairman Kim Jong-un, do you think this timing has successfully served as a silver bullet by the Dems against President Trump?
No, this hearing was not a silver bullet. The timing issue is, you know what, the summit was announced late, the congressional testimony was announced late, it's already been delayed once. The Trump administration also chose to stack on the same day a meeting between Kushner and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, so everyone's playing games with the schedule. The most important thing about this hearing is to remember that this is the one open to the public testimony that Cohen is giving Congress. He is meeting with Congress in 2 other testimonies. He already met with the Senate Intelligence Committee. He is meeting today with the House Intelligence Committee. Both of those testimonies are sealed because that's where evidence that may or may not be involved in justice proceedings, may or may not be involved in national security, will be covered. The public hearing by the Oversight Committee is, of course, going to inherently include largely public information because it's a hearing in front of the public. And that means that Republicans get to say, there's nothing new. Democrats get to say, hey, this is a bombshell because even though it's not new, this is under oath. This is actual evidence that the president has done all sorts of things that he has publicly denied doing. The problem is, he's only publicly denied doing them. He's never said no under oath, so it's not a crime to technically lie to the American public.
It's also done with an audience, right? It's carried live on TV. So whatever Cohen says, he must also have the audience of the American general public in mind. Now, he provided some documents, for instance, the copy of one of the checks that President Trump wrote him for the hush money he was paying, and then also the financial statements of President Trump's assets, also a newspaper clipping of how President Trump set up an auction, arranged an auction of a portrait of himself, and also the letter that he was writing to the former schools where President Trump attended, threatening the school never to disclose how the performance of President Trump in these places. Why do you think, Zhao, that Cohen chose to show these documents? What kind of president did he want to paint in the brain of the public?
Well, it's interesting now we have two different narratives, because previously the general public focused on Mueller's investigation, which is focused on the Russian connection, the Russian collusion. And this time when Michael Cohen came out, because he was the private fixer for President Trump, been a long time, he knew President Trump personally, and he has a lot of details on him. And now the narrative has changed, shifted from the Russia connection to President Trump's financial dealings and his personal character. And that will be, in terms of law, will be pursued very differently, because this time the New York prosecutor will get involved, and to get involved in terms of not investigating Trump himself, but also the Trump organization and Trump's family. So I think overall this is a very important new development, and when Democrats is in power in the House, they will pursue this narrative even further.
Yeah, Brendan, your take on this question?
The problem is that we have to deal with different issues, right? Again, under the House Intel one, a lot of people are speculating that they will talk about Russia, the election, possible national security issues. But in the public stuff, they have to stick to stuff that we can talk about in front of the public. That means the payments to Stormy Daniels. The payments to Stormy Daniels are important because if that was done on his own, it could be seen as an illegal campaign contribution. But if he has an agreement to get repayment from his client, then it's not necessarily as clear that it's illegal, and it's definitely not a violation of campaign finance laws. So Democrats are sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They can embarrass the president, but they can't necessarily find something fully illegal. The financial shenanigans around the portrait, using his foundation to purchase a portrait of himself, President Trump may look bad, may be liable for some sort of financial crime at some point, but that goes back before he's president, and so we have to figure out how far we can go back on a lot of those issues, and can he just, as he's asserted in the past, pardon himself. The real problem here is this hearing didn't give us anything new, didn't give us anything concretely illegal as president, but it is testimony that in the past would have been considered explosives. The United States government came to a grinding halt because a president publicly lied about getting oral sex from an intern. That resulted in impeachment of President Clinton. We have a sitting president potentially and seemingly paying to cover up an affair with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that people aren't talking about impeachment. Republicans who went crazy over President Clinton basically just go, meh, President Trump, he's a fine guy. How is that possible?
Well, what I find quite amazing or quite incredible is, again, looking from a distance from across the Pacific here, is that actually a lot of the things that Cohen said about President Trump are things that we already heard of. For instance, that he was a cheat, that he was a conman, that he was being a racist. I mean, what he talked about some African people, we all heard. So these character flaws, although they might not be impeachable, they're very important when you are choosing the leader of the most powerful country in the world. I just wonder why these checks, why these questions, why these revelations were not made to surface before he's qualified to take his oath or to even run in the campaign. Zhao.
Well, I think before, American politics run very differently, because in order to run the highest office in the nation, you need a high morality. But President Trump is a very different candidate back then, because at that time, the rising populism in the United States is trying to find a different politician, or somebody who's not politician and who will not lie to them, who have business experience, for instance. So that's why they actually chose President Trump as their candidate, and they put Trump in the office trying to basically overthrow some of the existing...
There is no check on his background, right? There is not a office which says, okay, anybody who runs for president needs to have have certain qualities, and these qualities needs to stand the test of law before the country is, before someone already win the office, and when you find out, it's already too late. Brendan, your take.
Well, there's no legal requirement to be a moral human being to run for public office. And President Trump, as candidate Trump, was wildly known to be having a vein of racism, having wildly claimed and bragged about cheating the government out of taxes. He wildly claimed to be a businessman that was smarter than anybody.
But isn't that a problem?
And we had evidence of him on camera Yeah, right. It is a huge problem for me, but voters apparently said, you know what, we don't really care if he's moral. We don't really care if he's misogynistic and sexist and he's assaulted women. We don't really care if he said suspect statements about black people and poor people and all these different issues. We want him because he's a real dude. That's the problem. I mean, we have watched President Trump prove that morality is not a prerequisite to higher office, and this is where the testimony by Cohen just sort of gives us nothing new. He basically confirmed. What I was most shocked at is in American history, I cannot think of someone under oath calling a sitting president racist, a con man, and a cheat, but we're in such a polarized, such a era of people saying these things all the time that I think it's going to get forgotten. It's not going to be in the history books like it would have been if it was 20 years ago.
I think in 2016,
yeah, go ahead.
I think in 2016 the setting is political correctness versus get things done. And President Trump basically promoted himself as the person who has business experience who can get things done, and he disregard of the traditional political correctness. That's what why he has been so successful so far.
But according to Cohen, basically President Trump never wanted to win. What he wanted to do was to promote his brand, was to promote himself, and as a surprise result, he won, but he ran on a platform of hatred and intolerance. Isn't that a great irony for the people who voted him in? Or do they really not care anymore so long as he's able to bring some benefits to them? Brandon?
Well, I think he's tricked a large amount of Americans in believing that he's going to bring them benefit, and the reality is from tax cuts to other policies, he's hurt American farmers, he's hurt the working class, he's hurt the poor, and yet those are the people that in large portions of the country are the most adamantly pro-Trump because they like his style. They like somebody that in their minds told them the truth and talked about draining the swamp, while in reality he just put his own cronies in cabinets, he put super wealthy billionaires in charge of the Commerce Department, and he's continued to prove that he can't deliver very much internationally or domestically. So we're going to have to figure out if this matters in 2020 or if his brand of populism shows out and he wins again.
At this moment, Zhao Hai, how do you see the likelihood that things will be dramatically different for 2020? And who can we believe? I mean, even Cohen could be lying too. It's everything on TV. President Trump is lying. He says he's lying. We don't know who to believe.
But Michael Cohen opens a door. His testimony is just the beginning. That's what I think. It's going to be a series of another testimony, one after another, as long as Democrats control the House, and they will continue to investigate. So the current problem is that Michael Cohen himself cannot collaborate all the stories. But when you bring in more and more witnesses, and the stories are getting more and more solidified, that's when Trump will have a real problem. And I think when that's been the real story, then I think Trump will have a problem explaining to his supporters what happened to his family, to his organization, and people cannot no longer ignore those stories.
That's assuming that Cohen is telling the truth, and at this moment, almost nobody knows, right? Shame on you, shame on you. Who is telling the truth? Anyway, Zhao Hai, Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and Brandon Blackburn-Dwyer, President of Grasshopper Group.